I just want to say how very sorry I am for...
She should be locked up until she tells us what happened.
The truth is that I want an answer just as bad as all of you.
We're talking about 17 kids in one classroom. I want to know what happened in that classroom. Why just her classroom? Why only her?
They are our children.
I love those kids.
This is a true story that happened right here in my town. A lot of people die in a lot of really weird ways in this story, but you're not going to find it in the news.
Those kids walked out of those homes. No one pulled them out. No one forced them. What do you see that I don't?
Show me. Where did you go?
There's something very, very wrong going on.
What am I looking at?
Leave the investigating to the investigators.
I've never seen anything like that in my life.
Are you watching? Are you watching? Are you watching? Are you watching?
Hello, everyone, and welcome to an all-new episode of the Robert Palace Podcast. Thank you so much for joining me, ladies and gentlemen. And on deck for this week's episode, my review of the new film Weapons from director Zach Cregger, starring Julia Garner. I've been calling her Gartner for the last 2 weeks, so apologies on that. Also starring Josh Brolin, Austin Abrams, Amy Madigan, Benedict Wong, along many others, and I will talk about that later on in the show. And also, kids are back in school this week. My kids started yesterday, and as I learned this past weekend, there's a lot of kids that don't start school until the middle of this week, which is weird for me. I always remember starting on a Monday. Start of the week, the Sunday scaries. So it's weird to hear these days that kids start in the middle of the week for school. I don't know. I feel like they have it so much easier than we did growing up. But it is what it is. But I usually coincide the start of school with kind of like the end of summer. And I know I talked to a couple of people at my former employer who always said like summer runs all the way through the end of August. So we still got a couple of films in the quote-unquote summer slate. But I wanted to use this opportunity for this episode to talk about stuff coming up in the next few months. So I'll dub this the fall preview show, and I'll dive into the world of movies, TV, sports, everything coming up later this year, and I'll preview all of that in a big bundle here on this episode. But as always, we do start with the box office report. So for this weekend, the 8th through the 10th, as I mentioned, Weapons, which I'm going to be reviewing here for you in just a little while, was the number one movie of the weekend, bringing in $43 million for Warner Brothers, which, fun fact, this is the 6th straight number one film from Warner's this year. They are the number one studio this year, leading the way with a Minecraft movie. And then, of course, the huge success of Sinners and F1. And again, 3 or 4 of these movies are original movies, including the Minecraft movie. I know it's intellectual property, but it's still the first one, so you got to consider it some type of original movie that we haven't seen before. So you got a Minecraft movie, Sinners, F1, and now Weapons. So a lot of people were throwing stones at Warner Brothers Discovery. They're a studio that's falling apart. They don't know what they're doing. Are they going to be, even around in the next couple of years? Are they going to be sold off? I was very quick to not judge, and I will never judge. You got to let things, kind of simmer. We're in a judge now, instant reaction culture. Not me. I've always thought of Warner Brothers as one of the more elite movie studios that really do take chances and try to do different kinds of movies. Weapons is one of those, once you watch it, you're like, man, a big studio, greenlit this thing. You're going to be like, man, that's insane. But I've always enjoyed that about Warner's, and, Sinners is another one where you like, in today's society, you didn't think a big studio would, Project Greenlight this kind of movie, but I'm glad that it's still happening. So Warner's is number one right now. Minecraft movie is a big part of that, bringing in almost close to $1 billion at the box office. If not $1 billion, I have to double check the numbers on that. But they are number one this weekend at $43 million. And again, it wasn't a big budget either on this movie, so it's going to be a big success for them. At number 2, another movie that did really well, Freakier Friday, the sequel to the 2003 Freaky Friday, starring Lindsay Lohan and Jamie Lee Curtis, returning in those roles, bringing in $28 million. Again, this is a movie that wasn't also big budgeted, so it's a pretty big success. I think it's around $70 million on the budget, so it's going to make its money back for sure once you add in like the worldwide money and all that stuff. This is the kind of movie that Disney used to make a lot of in the late 90s, middle of the 2000s, before Pixar and animation and all these adaptations of their animated films really took over their box office revenue, along with Marvel and Star Wars. So this is good for them. I expect this one to have some pretty good legs. That female audience, I don't ever doubt. So it's not like something like Weapons, like horror. Usually those movies are really front loaded. But Freakier Friday, I expect to have a little bit of better legs as that female audience goes during the week, and then, as the weekends go on. Again, it's not going to be some giant hit, but it's going to be enough to consider this a success for Disney. Speaking of Disney, at number 3, the continuing free fall of the Fantastic Four First Steps, dipping another like 60%, bringing in $15 million. Its total now stands at $230. I highly doubt this movie's going to come anywhere close to hitting $300 million. We saw Superman has already hit that mark, so this was supposed to be the big turnaround for Marvel, and I know everyone's making excuses for it, but there was a lot of hype and marketing put into this one as kind of like the savior. I know we got 2 Avengers movies coming up, but this was really supposed to turn the ship. So I know it's reviewed well by the critics and the diehards love it, but this continuing free fall just tells you that the casuals are in that Marvel fatigue, and they've kind of really had their fix on it. They're going to show up to Spider-Man, they're going to show up to Avengers, but for any other property, this is kind of just the range we should expect now. This is at the high end of it, right? The Fantastic Four is definitely more successful than Thunderbolts and Captain America Brave New World, but considering putting all their chips into this, like, this is really considered a massive disappointment. At number 4, The Bad Guys 2, dipping 51%, so that's about as average for, a second weekend for a movie that did not so bad, bringing in another $10 million, so its total now stands at 43. Now, I don't know what the original budget was for these kind of movies, but I know the first one was kind of doing a little better than what this one's doing at this pace. So I don't know if DreamWorks is going to put more money into possibly doing a third movie. They could, and then just release it in a better time slot. Early August is kind of rough. You kind of want to put this looks more like a movie you should put in the spring, right around spring break, or early part of summer, like in May, where you can give it time to have legs. I don't know if this is going to have legs, because we're going to get to the latter part of the year where it starts becoming more about the adult dramas and all the Oscar stuff. So, you could have released this also in November, but, you're going to be going up against Wicked, and, and then December you got Avatar. So I guess this is really where you could only put it this year. So, but it is what it is. That's The Bad Guys 2, $43 million total, second week on release. And then at number 5 is The Naked Gun, dipping 50%, bringing in $8 million for a total of 32 so far, which is, I guess it's okay, but, I really thought repeat business would do well for this. I thought the movie was okay. You heard my review last week, but from a financial standpoint, I really wanted this to be a success on a bigger scale, because I want to see more comedies. But there are some coming down the pipeline, which I didn't know that were existing. when I was watching The Naked Gun, there was one with Keanu Reeves and Aziz Ansari and Seth Rogen, who I'm like kind of in and out with. It's a love-hate relationship with me and him now. But that's coming down the pipeline. That looks pretty funny. I've seen a couple of more comedies that are getting green lit, so hopefully those are theatrical releases and not streamers. So that's a positive coming off post Naked Gun release. But yeah, I was really having more higher expectations of this holding a little better. I would have preferred like a 40% drop than a 50, because 50 is like, I don't know. It's not bad, but also like it's not trending in the right direction, So that's your top 5 this weekend. I expect Weapons to be number 1 again this weekend. It's got good word of mouth. It's got an A on Cinema Score, as I believe Freakier Friday does as well. So those movies should hold pretty well. We got Nobody 2 starring Bob Odenkirk, a sequel to the 2020 action comedy. I don't think that has enough to be number 1. I know it was a modest hit during the COVID times, but we're post that, so I don't know how much of a following it got or how much anybody knows about it. The marketing is there for it, but it's kind of a little left to be desired. Like I remember liking the first one. I got to revisit it before I check out this one. The first one had a little bit more of a darker, grittier premise. This looks kind of like, dumper sequel territory. Now, it could be good, but I'm not really amped for it. Like, I'll watch it because I like Bob Odenkirk, but really it does look like just like a whatever sequel. So, I highly doubt it's going to be better than the first one. And again, I got to revisit it to see how much I still liked it. I know I liked it when I saw it originally, but that was almost 5 years ago. So, we'll see. My opinion changes constantly when it comes to movies. So we'll see. You got Highest to Lowest with Denzel Washington from director Spike Lee. That's their 5th collaboration. I'm going to go check out that one as well. That one's got a 2-week theatrical run until it premieres on Apple TV Plus. I'm not expecting this to do anything at the box office, even though Denzel is pretty still a bankable star. You look at his Equalizer movies that were still hitting. But this one, with the small window that it has, I know it's not going to do much. So I think most adults are going to catch this on Apple TV Plus. But hey, if I got an opportunity to see it on the big screen, I'm going to take it. The other limited release, I think, is going to be Americana, another dark comedy from Sydney Sweeney. Sweeney's coming out in that. Paul Walter Hauser. Looking forward to that. Again, I'm not expecting much from that one either, but it's different and it's not a sequel or anything, so I will be checking that out. So a lot of movies to check out this week that I'll be able to cover for you on next week's episode. Let's take a break. When we come back, I'm going to talk weapons on this show. And thanks for tuning in. This is the Robert Palace Podcast. We'll be right back.
I've been working too hard. I have to take a vacation. Hutch, you're on vacation in a town run by the international cartels. I just want a break.
They're coming after our family. Go fix this, Hutch.
I told you.
Vacation! Nobody 2, rated R. Only in theaters August 15th.
Welcome back to the show. Nobody 2, starring Bob Odenkirk, and I think I also saw Colin Hanks in the marketing for this. I always enjoy him, but as I mentioned before, the marketing for this has been very subpar for me. It kind of just looks like a whatever sequel, but I will check it out. I do want to kind of announce something here. So I will be working on a new podcast along with my buddies that I usually have on here, Abraham Trevino and Jake Ramirez. We're going to be covering pop culture as well, and a lot of football and sports as well. So I do like collaborating with people because, as you know, it is pretty hard to do a podcast solo. You talking by yourself, it's not easy, folks. So I do enjoy having those conversations. So it's called Game Time at the Movies. That'll be premiering pretty soon, and the first movie we're going to be talking about is Nobody 2. So that's why I wanted to bring it up now. I'll be covering it on my show as well. My show is going to continue on. because I do have certain stuff that I want to talk about on this show that probably won't be as fun on the others just because they're not into some of the things that I am. But yeah, I will be working on that podcast with them. Again, you can talk about a lot of this stuff on many different platforms. I can go on and on about movies or TV, pop culture, on many different types of shows if you invite me. I don't mind talking about the same things over and over because you can get different perspectives. That's why I love having those conversations. So that'll be coming to you soon. Game time at the movies. So stay tuned for that. All right, let's get to my review of the week, Weapons, from director Zach Cregger, who this is his second film follow-up to Barbarian, which came out a few years ago, which I really loved. I know it was a modest hit at the box office. We were still kind of like at the tail end of COVID while that was happening, so, I mean, the numbers weren't huge for it. The reception was, I think critically it was good, but like from audiences and people back when I was at the theater, they were kind of just like, this is a little too out there. For me, I love out there movies and movies that zag from time to time, so it's right up my alley. And the marketing for this Weapons movie looked like it was like, this is going to be one of those where you really can't predict and know where it's headed. So, stars Julia Garner, Josh Brolin, Austin Abrams, Amy Madigan, who took me a while to figure out when she popped up in the movie, and I was like, that is her. But it's just that so much time has passed. Amy Madigan, for those of you that know your actors, she was, for me, I remember her most from Uncle Buck. She was the girlfriend to John Candy's character, so she pops up kind of like more towards the third act of that movie. I mean, she's in it, but more in the third act of that movie. So if you know the movie Uncle Buck, you know who I'm talking about. So she pops in as kind of like a revelation in this movie and almost kind of like an awards-worthy performance. Now, will it happen? I'm not sure. Now, I don't want to spoil too much of this because this is a movie that zags. So I'm going to put it out there for you. This movie zags and it goes somewhere where you're not even thinking. So it's kind of like in the same, like a spiritual sequel to Barbarian. Zach kind of keeps that same tone. So I really appreciate it. It was directed really well. It's not a straight linear story, and what I mean by that, it's not your typical movie where it just goes like from A to B to C. This movie is told from different perspectives of characters, so that was kind of one of the only bits that, I mean, I loved it, don't get me wrong, I loved it, but this movie also runs a little bit over 2 hours, so I was like, oh man, come on, let's get to it, because we would follow one character, like, for example, Julia Garner's character, Garner, there I go again with Garner. Julia Garner's character, we follow her up to a certain point, and then the movie kind of starts back from the beginning and it goes through the perspective of somebody else. So it's more of an ensemble movie. I really thought going into it was going to be Julia Garner's movie, but once you watch it, you find out it's kind of everybody's movie and it's an ensemble and you get everybody's point of view, but be prepared for that as you're going in, you're watching the movie go along, and right as it's about to get like really, really good, it goes back, and then you get another story. But once we get into that third act of the movie, I liked it because, you didn't see it coming, and even though there's kind of hints to it, you're still like, okay, this could really go anywhere. And I was really, really impressed with the direction here from Zach Cregger. Just really directed well. The photography, the cinematography is all there. The performances are really good. Something interesting I read about before I hopped onto this podcast was that one of the original cast members for this, so let me put it in perspective. So Weapons originally had a different cast, but during the strikes and all that, a lot of stuff had to change because of scheduling conflicts. So like Josh Brolin is in this, but he wasn't originally co-starring in this. It was Pedro Pascal. But, I told you, I've had my fill of Pedro Pascal for a while, so I'm kind of glad he's not in this. And, and again, I'm not saying that he's a bad actor, but it was just been too much of him this year that, it was nice to see somebody else. And Josh Brolin is good in this, don't get me wrong, but I heard that Brian Tyree Henry was originally slated to be in this movie, and I was like, man, I wonder if he was slated to be in the Josh Brolin role, because I thought he would have brought, a little bit more of an comedic performance to it, because don't get me wrong, while this is a horror movie, there is a lot of funny moments in this movie, including like a big part in the third act. the audience I was with was laughing the entire time, and I don't know if they were laughing because they thought it was really funny or it's because the movie had gotten so tense that we just had to let out a different type of emotion. And laughing's the easiest thing you can do, right? We all laugh in uncomfortable situations sometimes. And this movie does get pretty tense because you're like, well, what's happening? We don't know what the revelation is. We keep going back and forth. And right as we're about to hit the brink, like the story starts over again. So from that point, like I thought the comedic element would have served an actor like Brian Tyree Henry better in this role. Not that Josh Brolin wasn't good, but I think Brian Tyree Henry would have brought in a different energy to it, especially if you've seen him in stuff like Atlanta, where he's so good at his facial reactions when it comes to stuff that's like, what the fuck is this? Like, what is happening around me? Like, he's so good at that. So once I read that, I was like, oh man, this movie would have been like 4 stars for me had that happened, but it's a 3.5 out of 4. I thought it's really solid. Is it going to go on my top 10? Possibly. It's definitely worth a rewatch. Again, my only knack with it, or that I could say, is just that it was a little bit too long, but that's just for my personal taste, where it's like, oh, come on, let's get it going. Like, you got a good pace going. Like, I think we could have done without maybe 1 or 2 perspectives, because there's like a lot of perspectives of characters that we go through in this movie. And don't get me wrong, they all like intersect and it all makes sense. But I think if you take out at least 1 or 2, you still get to the same outcome and you still get the same feeling, and you don't feel anything's left out. So Austin Abrams was also pretty funny in this. He's in Euphoria. He's in a lot of stuff. A young and up-and-coming actor. He's pretty good. And this is his kind of movie and the kind of role that he's just kind of made for right now. So he was a standout here. Alden Ehrenreich, I think it's how you pronounce his name. He's the guy who played young Han Solo. He was good in this as a cop. And again, Amy Madigan, she shows up as the aunt of one of the Soul kids who is around during this, because the story is, right, that these kids from a classroom at 2:17 in the morning all like disappeared out of thin air and just vanished. But he's one of the kids from that classroom that kind of like is around to like tell the story. So she plays the aunt to him, and she's just incredible in this. Scary, creepy, haunting, in a funny and also like just scary way. So, like I said, I don't know if she's gonna get any recognition here for an awards nomination, but there is push for it online already. So we'll see. We'll see if Warner's puts in money into that campaign, right? Because we all know that a lot of the Oscar stuff is putting money in who we're going to spend and try to plug and put into this cycle, this award cycle of who's going to get nominated. But again, a really solid follow up to Barbarian. I'm really interested in the career of Zach Cregger now. I know he's doing something with Resident Evil next. That doesn't really entice me. Resident Evil has been done to death, and also it's just not something that I'm interested in. If you're excited for that, great. But it's just something that I'm not really into at the moment. But yeah, an exciting filmmaker. He's got a vision. He's got a tone. He set a tone for these first 2 movies, and I really dig it. I dig the out there and the zagging when everybody thinks you're gonna, go left. I really enjoyed this movie. It was fun. Go check it out. It does get a little too violent, especially like in that third act. So if you're kind of queasy, probably don't go see it. I know the kids thing is kind of like a sore thumb for me, only because I have kids of my own, but it's not as bad as I was thinking in terms of like, oh man, I hope like nothing bad happens to these kids. And again, I'm not spoiling anything, but that's as much as I'll say. Is like my fears were kind of thrown to the wayside. Like we're good. But yeah, one of the more surprising movies of the year, and I'm glad that it was number 1, an original movie. Again, Warner's knocking it out of the park. So yeah, go check out Weapons in theaters now. It's the number 1 movie in America, and I'm sure it'll be number 1 again this weekend. Let's take one last break. When we come back, fall 2025 preview here at the Robert Palace Podcast. I'll tell you what I'm looking forward to in the next couple of months. Stick around. We'll be right back.
There's more to life than just making money. And the hard times will come from the good times. The hard times will come from success. The hard times will come from the money, and the mayhem follows. So can you handle the mayhem? Can you handle the money? Can you handle the success? Can you handle the failures? Can you handle the memes? Can you handle everything that there is in between? Got to get ready! Can you handle it? Got a big payback.
Rated R.
All money ain't good money.
Welcome back to the show, Highest to Lowest, starring Denzel Washington from director Spike Lee. Coming to you in limited run for 2 weeks, starting on Friday, and then it'll be on Apple TV+. I'd only seen one trailer for it a very long time ago, and I was like, I'm in, it's Denzel, whatever, I'm going to watch whatever he's going to do. But then seeing a couple of more TV spots for it, I'm like way in. I'm getting more pumped for this. I'm probably more excited for this than Nobody 2, even though Nobody 2 kind of has a little bit more of the marketing power over this right now, but I'm expecting Highest to Lowest to be pretty decent. So looking forward to that this weekend. All right, let's get into my fall 2025 preview show. This is stuff coming up, whether it's movies, TV, sports entertainment, that I'm really looking forward to as we close out 2025. So let's run down some of the movies that I'm looking forward to in the next couple of months. We can start here with the middle of August, starting with this weekend. There's a couple of movies. So Nobody 2, starring Bob Odenkirk. Again, I liked the original. I need to revisit it before giving my final thoughts on whether I really did like this movie or not, but now it's a franchise with a sequel happening. Again, the premise looks to be very much little left to be desired. You know, Bob Odenkirk's character of Hutch goes on vacation with his family, and then he gets into some hijinks, and he does the action comedy stuff, a la a funnier version of probably John Wick. The other two movies coming out that weekend will be Americana, starring Sydney Sweeney, Paul Walter Hauser. Fingers crossed. This is like kind of like a more dark comedy, but hopefully he has a little bit more to do. Finally, in one of these movies, Paul Walter Hauser is one of the funniest actors that we have in this generation. But you know, his little appearance in freaking Fantastic Four, First Steps, and Naked Gun were just, again, there's a lot more you could do with him, and I felt like he was very underserved in those two movies, so hopefully he'll get to shine here in this one. Halsey is also going to be in this movie. I enjoy her music. We'll see how she does as an actress. So, little fun dark comedy this weekend, along with Highest to Lowest with Denzel Washington, and again, that's starting this weekend, the 15th. And then we got on August 22nd, Honey Don't, starring Margaret Qualley, Aubrey Plaza, Chris Evans. This is also another dark comedy from Ethan Coen, from the legendary duo of the Coen brothers, who are very good at these kind of movies. The Coen brothers as solo directors have kind of been hit and miss, but this has got a good cast, and I will check it out, as it is not a big studio movie or not a sequel, so looking forward to that. On September 4th, we got NFL kickoff. Aren't we all waiting for the NFL to be back? Got to see some preseason football action this weekend, but September 4th will be the official start, and we are kicking it off with the Philadelphia Eagles, the reigning defending Super Bowl champions, at home taking on the Dallas Cowboys. This is going to draw a lot of eyeballs. Everybody will be talking about this game. You know, you can say what you want about the Cowboys, but they do draw viewers, so you already know who I'm going for in this matchup. But September 4th is going to be here in a few weeks, and then there's going to be a lot of football talk on this show as well, as we head all the way to Super Bowl 50 or Super Bowl 60, I think. We're heading to Super Bowl 60. Got to double check on that, but that'll be in mid-February, I believe. So going to be a lot of football along with movie talk here on this podcast, so looking forward to that. September 19th, we got A Big, Bold, Beautiful Journey, starring Colin Farrell and Margot Robbie. Kind of like this big romance fantasy film. Again, it could be a little weird, a little too out there, but I enjoy two movie stars going at it on the big screen, and a romance movie, give me that 100 times over a Marvel movie. So this will be Margot's, I think, first big follow-up to Barbie. Now, I don't think commercially this movie is going to be all there for it to make all the money, but, you know, it could be could be something for award season to maybe look at. I'm looking forward to it. Colin Farrell, Margot Robbie in a romance movie. Give it to me. September 19th, we'll also see the release of Him, starring Marlon Wayans. This is like one of those, looks like it's going to be a weird horror movie. It's about this star football player that gets into, like, quote unquote the NFL. I don't think they're going to use the NFL likeness, but it's basically professional football and, you know, him getting into the dark underworld of fame and all that stuff. So, you know, it's all that stuff that you hear, stuff that you saw in the movie Babylon a little bit. But I'm sure it's going to dive in more into that stuff here. Again, if it's super weird, I'm going to enjoy that. You know, it's from producer Jordan Peele. So it could be a little out there, but that's just right up my alley when it comes to horror. I love horror movies, especially the ones that like go really weird with it. So I'm expecting some good stuff out of that. That weekend we'll also see the return of Sylvester Stallone in Tulsa King season 3 starting, I believe that weekend. I know NFL, I thought it was kicking off the same weekend as NFL, but I guess not. So September 21st on Paramount Plus. I like that this will be this has been a week-to-week show. They don't drop all their episodes at once, so you at least get to talk about it for a few months. I believe it's going to be 10 to 12 episodes, something like that. We've gotten a few clips here and there. I don't think we've gotten a full-on trailer, but, you know, Stallone has done pretty well with this show. I never thought he would venture into TV, but he's made this work. It's kind of like his own little version of The Sopranos, building this lore and, you know, not as prestige as like a Sopranos, but very entertaining television and something that is fun to watch from week to week. So that'll be coming at the end of September. On September 26th, Leonardo DiCaprio's next movie, One Battle After Another, from director Paul Thomas Anderson, who does really, really good movies. Just search him up on IMDb. You'll see he's got a lot of classics on there. Also starring Benicio del Toro, Sean Penn. Another movie that could be divisive, kind of like an Eddington, where it's very covering a lot of the political spectrum and the cultural war that we're in now these days. So I'm just looking forward to an entertaining movie and not so much the preachiness like Eddington. A little bit preachy, but also just like a very entertaining and very horrific movie. Check that one out. That one's available on digital now, and you can buy that soon on 4K and Blu-ray. But One Battle After Another, that's going to be on IMAX. I want to see that just to see. I believe they filmed it for IMAX, so it's going to be an interesting watch on that format. Let's see. Then we get into October. October 3rd. Let me see here. Smashing Machine from one of the Safdie brothers. One of two Safdie brothers that are doing their own movies. Another set of brothers like the Coens who are venturing off into doing their solo careers. So I'm very interested more on how this Safdie brother, I believe it's, I forgot if it's Benny Safdie that's doing this movie. He wasn't Happy Gilmore too, sorry. Still thinking about him in that. But this is going to be a dramatic film. Dwayne Johnson finally stepping into something different, even though it's like a physical role as well, into something more different than the other stuff that he's usually done, which is kind of like the same slop, like Rampage and Jungle Cruise and San Andreas, you know, the typical action hero. This is looks nuanced. And yes, he's playing a UFC fighter, Mark Kerr. It's based on a true story. Also has Emily Blunt in it. Could have some awards potential, but this could be something different that I've been looking for a long time from Dwayne Johnson, to see if he has a lot of range as an actor as opposed to just doing action movies and comedies. So this will be an interesting one. I'm really looking forward to it. It looks good. On October 10th, Roofman, starring Channing Tatum, from director Derek Cianfrance, who did The Place Beyond the Pines, one of my favorite movies. Looks like a little fun, dark comedy. Also has Kirsten Dunst in it. It's about this escaped convict who hid around like a bunch of... I don't know if it was a bunch of different Toys R Us's, but this one focuses on a certain specific Toys R Us that he hangs out in, and, you know, just hijinks and, you know, kind of cat and mouse type of movie. And always nice to see Channing Tatum on screen. I think he's an underrated actor that not a lot of people give him credit for. I think he's got a lot of range. He can do drama, he can do comedy, he can do action, but this looks like a mix of all three. So should be a fun little movie. looking forward to that. On October 17th, one that's been getting probably a lot of pre-awards chatter. That's After the Hunt. That's Luca Guadagnino's next film, starring Julia Roberts, Andrew Garfield, and Ayu Edebiri from The Bear. So a lot of good actors in that. And of course, Julia Roberts is one of my favorites of all time. Nice to see her make a comeback. Hopefully maybe this is her Oscar year or another year where we can talk about her in that race. I know she's won an Oscar before, but we haven't really seen her in much in the last couple of years. So I want to see her back in there. So yeah, that'll release on October 17th, a day before my birthday, my 39th birthday this year. Woo! Getting up there, folks. Almost hitting the big 4-0. Also releasing on October 17th is Good Fortune. That's the comedy I was telling you about earlier that I saw the trailer for during The Naked Gun. That stars Keanu Reeves and Aziz Ansari and Seth Rogen. Had a nice little trailer. I was sold on it. It looks like it could be kind of like that, a little bit of that old school comedy where there's a little bit of offensive comedy in there, but hopefully it's that and not like a swerve. So it looks like an old school comedy. Looking forward to that. October 31st, we got Buganya. I believe I'm pronouncing that right. That is starring Emma Stone and Jesse Plemons. Jesse Plemons and I forgot who the other actor is in the movie. They play a pair of like conspiracy theorists, and Emma Stone plays this like high-end CEO, and they believe she's disguised as an alien who's come to dominate Earth. So I'm expecting that movie to be completely out there and wacky. So looking forward to that. I know people are probably going to hate this movie, but I like the premise of it. You hear alien already, I'm in. So if that ends up being the case, yes, let's do it. Another one that could get a lot of the same awards chatter like A Complete Unknown did, or it could be like a complete bust, is Springsteen, Deliver Me From Nowhere. That's the Bruce Springsteen movie starring Jeremy Allen White in the title role. So I'm looking forward to his performance here. I really want him to have a good career here post the bump. I know he's getting to star in a lot of movies. I know he's one of the people that's circling The Social Network 2. I believe he's got a movie coming out with Austin Butler that's kind of like this generation's Heat kind of movie. Again, his career's on the up and up. He was in The Iron Claw just a few years ago. He was really good in that. So, good film selection here from Jeremy Allen White as far as career options go. So, well, I hope this movie hits. We need more movies like, we used to have a lot of biopics, and most of them were pretty good, but in this last couple of years, they're kind of like hit and miss. Like, I know people like Bohemian Rhapsody, but that's more because of the music, I believe, more than the actual movie itself. A Complete Unknown, I thought was really well done with Timothée Chalamet. That's the movie that finally won me over with him. So, it's got a decent director too. So I'm expecting some good things out of this. Hopefully it's good. Then we head into November 7th, The Running Man, starring Glenn Powell, my boy Glenn Powell. He's back. This is a remake of the Arnold Schwarzenegger film. I forgot, it's from somewhere in the 80s. I'm giving this one a chance, not only because it's Glenn Powell, but because it's also directed by Edgar Wright, who did Baby Driver, Scott Pilgrim vs. the World, the Hot Fuzz, and that. I forgot what that trilogy's called, but, he's an acclaimed director, and he's got a style, so the trailer looks really fun and exciting, and I hope this is a commercial hit, because I think Glenn Powell is like the next big actor for the movies going forward, so I'm expecting this to be a solid hit. November 14th, Now You See Me, Now You Don't, Part 3 in this franchise. They're silly movies, but I enjoy them. It's one of those, like, if it's on TBS or TNT on a Saturday afternoon, you'll watch. It's got Jesse Eisenberg again, Dave Franco, Isla Fisher's back, Woody Harrelson. It should be, I don't know if the movie's going to be any good, but their interactions in these movies are pretty solid. The chemistry is great with this cast, so looking forward to that. That's in November. And then we head into December 5th. Five Nights at Freddy's 2. I'm not so much as excited for this, but why I am excited is because my kids are, and that's just another movie we'll get to all go together with and experience together. So they're looking forward to it. I thought the first one was decent. again, these movies, you can't really judge them on, for critically acclaimed or anything like that. These movies are what they are. I think it's going to be a giant hit because this is just a franchise that's in tune with this generation. It's not catering to, my demographic and older. We got to get franchises out there for the kids that are into this stuff now. That's why a Minecraft movie was so huge, was because it was catering to the generation now. And you got to give them stuff that they want to see on the big screen. And Five Nights at Freddy's 2 was a huge hit back when it released, I think 2 or 3 years ago, and this one will be big as well. Releasing in December, that's a choice, but that means it'll stick around during the holidays, and it may make more money because of that. December 19th, Avatar, Fire and Ash. You can say what you want about these movies, but visually they are fantastic. I'm all about movies not being too long these days, but there's certain filmmakers I will allow it. A Scorsese, a Nolan, James Cameron. I know this movie's going to be over 3 hours, but what he gives me visually will be enough to satisfy me for 3 hours. The story, the first trailer came out already for this, and again, it's not too like, oh my god, I can't wait to see this, but once the movie comes out, people are going to go see it. It's going to make $1 gajillion, and it's going to be a sight to see. I'll definitely want to see this in IMAX 3D. I think his movies are really the only thing I want to see in 3D and IMAX, if that, because that's, I think, the best version of 3D. So that'll come during Christmas time. That'll dominate. On December 25th, Marty Supreme from Timothée Chalamet. That's the other Safdie brother that's going to be directing this. I believe it's about the Chalamet characters playing somebody who's, I think, into ping pong. It's something like that. I haven't read much into it. I just know I saw the cast. He's in it. Gwyneth Paltrow, Fran Drescher, and of course the other Safdie brothers directing. So that's another big sell for me, and this will probably be an awards contender as well. Also coming up in December, don't know the exact date, but John Cena's final match in WWE will happen. So we're nearing the end of the John Cena farewell tour. He's finally turned back into a good guy, so now we can just enjoy him as he always has been. He did turn into a bad guy earlier this year, and the run was a little left to be desired. I'm glad they took a swing and did it, but now that it's happened and it failed, you can tell why, for all those years, why they never turned this guy into a bad guy, because John Cena is just the ultimate good guy, and, in the bad guy role, it just doesn't serve him. So, now we'll get to see him go out, and it's going to be probably emotional. It was emotional. I just watched this past week's episode of SmackDown, and getting to see him talk, and just the crowd just finally embracing him like the way I think he always should have been embraced, being that ultimate hero. I've always enjoyed John Cena. Did he become stale at times during his career? Sure, but I've always been a big John Cena fan, and I know he's got a bigger career now in Hollywood, and he's doing all these different things, and I respect him in the fact that he says he knows that physically he can't go anymore, so he's not going to just be like one of those old timers, like, no offense and no disrespect to Ric Flair, but that hung around too longer, and you look at their ladder matches and they just kept coming back, and it's like, just go out when it's time to go out. And John Cena knows he's not at his physical prime anymore, and he can't do this, and it's a young man's game, and he's going to go out the way he wants to, and he says this is it. He will not be enticed to come back out of retirement for anything. Now, never say never in wrestling, but this looks to be the first time where somebody says they're going to call it a career, and that is it. Now, Shawn Michaels tried to do this, but he ended up coming back for a match. So, TBD, but I kind of believe John Cena because he does have a full-on career outside of this now. One thing I didn't mention in my upcoming stuff that I'm looking forward to in this fall preview is Peacemaker Season 2 is coming here at the end of this month. It's the follow-up to, I finally rewatched Season 1. I remember not liking the first couple of episodes when I originally saw it, but I think I was distracted with other stuff, so I never finished it. So it's been a couple of years since that's been out, and now with this new DCU headed by James Gunn, his character is crossing over and being integrated into this universe, so I'm very curious as to how that's going to work out. This is the follow-up to Superman, so there's a lot of Superman characters and a lot of Superman connection to this story, so I'm very much looking forward to it. I really like Season 1. It's very raunchy and all that stuff. So if you're into that stuff, you'll enjoy Peacemaker. A little too much at times for me, but not enough for me to dislike it. It's a fun show, and I'm looking forward to that. So, like I said, John Cena's got a huge career already ahead of him in Hollywood, just like Dwayne, and he's doing all these different things. And, you know, Dwayne hasn't officially retired from WWE, but, you know, he rarely comes back, and I don't think John Cena wants to do that either. So why not just end your career the way you want to? And he's done this giant farewell tour for the entire year, and it's going to culminate in December. I hope they do a big like TV special out of it, or if it becomes a pay-per-view. I don't know. We'll see. I believe that's everything that I'm looking forward to. There is one more streaming movie that I forgot to put on my list here now that I'm talking about it. It's going to be on Hulu from 20th Century Studios. It's called Swiped, starring Lily James, Dermot Mulroney, Dan Stevens. It's the story of Whitney Wolfe Herd, who was the founder and co-founder of Tinder, and she also created Bumble, which were some dating platforms that I've tried to use myself over the years. I've been on a couple of dates off of those apps, but not anything that you would consider a success. You know, I'm still single to this day, but I'm curious in that story and more the behind the scenes and the stuff that goes into it. So I'm not really much into streaming movies, but this caught my eye. There's a couple every now and then that'll catch my eye. You know, a couple of years ago, that Flaming Hot movie, the story of the guy who invented the Flaming Hot Cheeto, that was just an interesting, true story to go look at the backstory of. This one looks like another one of those, and Lily James is a fine actress. So looking forward to that. But a lot of football. Of course, there's wrestling the rest of the year. There's events all over the place, but that goes without saying. But that's everything that I'm looking forward to for the rest of 2025. I'll cover most of that stuff, hopefully, on this show. And maybe there's some other movies here that'll pop up out of nowhere because I was looking at the Box Office Mojo calendar, and sometimes their stuff isn't always super up to date. So I'm sure there'll be other stuff that'll pop out like, oh man, I didn't know about this movie. So, but for the most part, I got everything covered here that I want to see. Yeah, I think that's going to do it for today's episode. I want to thank you all for joining me on the Robert Palace Podcast. You can search the Robert Palace Podcast on most of your podcast platforms, Amazon, Spotify, Apple, Pandora, anywhere where you get your podcasts, it'll be on there. Also, you can search it on YouTube on my Robert Palacios channel, or just search the Robert Palace Podcast. I'm sure you'll find it. You can listen through there. It's not in video format, but you can still listen to the audio there. I'm active on most of my socials, more on Instagram at the Robert Palace Podcast, at Robert Palace Podcast if you want to search it. Facebook, X. Yeah, man. A lot of fun. As I mentioned, I'm working on a new podcast with Abraham Trevino and Jake Ramirez called Game Time at the Movies, which will be premiering soon. And one of the first movies we're going to cover is Nobody 2. So thank you so much for joining me, ladies and gentlemen. Have a good rest of your day or night or whenever you're listening to this, and God bless you.